And hello also to everyone on Zoom.
Until you say,
And
until I tell you.
we started so today we are gonna do just like a few hundred years. I felt like there was like just a little bit left on the side, and I said, like let's just do it in like 5-10 minutes. And then I realized those last 200-300 years,
a lot happened.
a lot happened. So we need an entire hour for those. It can't be just a few minutes.
Speaking for the Jewish people, we could use some boredom.
Yeah, right.
Some boredom?
It's never boring
No.
being part of the Jewish people. So we're going back in our chart, okay? And let me enlarge it a little bit for the people on Zoom. Okay. So we're gonna be here around where it says Shulchan Aruch. And there's like a blue dot next to it. You see that towards the end? And that's in blue because that was written in the land of Israel. Okay. The Shulchan Aruch, have you heard of it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, no, okay, no, so some did, some did not, that's okay. The Shulchan Aruch is very famous Jewish book, and it has all the laws of what a Jew should be doing or should not be doing in a very, very codified way. It's written by Rabbi Joseph Caro, who came from Turkey to Tzvat in the land of Israel, a part of like a group of mystics that came and settled the city of Tzvat, and that's also where the Zohar that we talked about last week, where Kabbalah began. That's where it really began in Tzvat, with that group of people. And Kara was one of those, but he was also a great scholar in the sense that he knew all the laws, and he studied them, since he was a child. But he was found to be like a genius person, and he knew it all very well, and he was also a very good author. He started off by writing all the commentaries he collected all the commentaries that there were on any kind of law. And it's very, very long books. It's like, if I was like in the shelves, I would have to fill out maybe just 3 shelves.
Oh, longer than the Encyclopedia Judaica.
Longer than the Encyclopedia Judaica, of his commentary on all these laws and talking about them and bringing and quoting all the different rabbis before him and what they had to say about that. And then he realized this is too long. Okay, I gotta sort of like somehow people are coming and asking, what's the final say? It's like, it's interesting that there are all these opinions, but we want to know what to do. So he created the Shulchan Aruch. He decided to codify basically the entire Jewish law and lay it out and say, this is what we have, and this is how we need to follow this. And because of the ways it was written, and because he was such a great scholar, it became a very, very popular set of books to have in every Jewish home. It would be studied, and as everything else that became very popular, there started to be commentaries on it. Okay, for example, the first thing that happened was Rabbi Yosef Kara. He's Sephardi. He's from Sephardi Jew, so he really represented that. This is a little bit too warm here.
Oh, okay.
It's like we're a lot of people here, so maybe we need to turn that off. Sorry, thank you, Larry. So because he's Sephardi, he wrote all the different laws from his point of view, And when the Ashkenazi rabbis received it, they said, this is unacceptable. Like, we reject this, okay? And they started writing all these arguments against him, but his books were so popular, okay? And people started reading them, and they were kind of like worried that because of the popularity, that maybe he'll take over their customs and their, legal decisions. So a very smart rabbi by the name of Rabbi Moshe Isserlich, the Ramah, okay, in Poland, started writing his commentary inside the Shulchan Aruch, okay? So there's like, and you actually see it, and when we will study it, I will bring it to you, and you will actually see the actual page where the large print is the Shulchan Aruch, is Rabbi Joseph Caro, okay, and the Ramah, Rabbi Isserlich from Poland, is like a smaller handwriting in Rashi writing.
So it's
okay,
like the Talmud.
it's like the Talmud, but he inserts it in, okay. And that became so popular because then the Ashkenazi Jews could also read the Shulchan Aruch, and there are things that they do agree on, and they do agree on a lot of issues, okay, but they don't agree on everything, okay. So these things that they could agree on would be there. Okay, I'll just give you one example. Okay, the Sephardi Jews keep 6 hours. Actually, there are two ways of keeping kosher. Between once you eat meat. Remember, we talked about that when we had our kosher class. It's all on video. It's all on the YouTube channel. But when you eat meat, you're supposed to wait 1 hour. Okay, or according to some of the more stricter Sephardi rabbis, you're supposed to wait 6 hours. Okay, it's either 1 hour or 6 hours. And that's what Rabbi Joseph Caro writes in the Shulchan Aruch, okay? But the Ashkenazi Jews, they have a custom of keeping 3 hours or 4 hours, okay? And Rabbi Isserlich from Poland writes this, and he writes it inside. He says, we practice this way, okay? So it's interesting, you have this variety of sources integrated into this book. These set of books became very, very popular. They talk about everything in Jewish life, and until today, they are studied, and until today, they are considered a very important authority that we go to. Even in conservative Judaism, when you want to, learn about something specific, you start with that. It might not be the final say, okay, as opposed to in the Orthodox world, that's usually like the final say is the Shulchan Aruch, but we still refer to it and look at it because of how popular it became and how widespread it was used.
Do some of those differences, are they minhag locally?
Some are minhags and some are actual laws. Okay, we will discuss that more when we get there. What happens around that time? So if you go up to the Jewish historical figures above, you see Rabbi Yosef Caro living in the land of Israel, because that's where he lived most of his life. And this is all around the 16th century. Okay, so you go up and you see that who rules Israel? It's the end of the Mamluk Empire. Okay, and this is also around the time of the expulsion from Spain, which we talked about last week. Okay, and in the year 1573, the Maharal from Prague establishes his academy. Okay, he's the mystic that created the golem. Okay, in Prague. So he's around that time as well. Judaism is prospering in Europe for hundreds of years already, but especially then. In 1648 is the Ukrainian massacre of Jews, where thousands of Jews, I believe, were murdered there. And then we have the establishment of the Hasidic and Mitznagdim movements. Okay, so the Hasidim is the Baal Shem Tov, and that's around that time that the Kabbalistic mystics start maybe becoming more popular in the world, and they're sort of like translating their more mystic writings and really translating it into a more popular writing of like matters of the heart and how to conduct yourself like as a proper human being, and to really kind of like take and we'll study this when we talk about Hasidut, but they are becoming very, very popular. If like in Kabbalah, you're not supposed to study it until you're 40, and it's like, it's like just a few people are studying in a very secretive way. Suddenly, when Hasidut emerges, like these writings are sort of like translated into a more popular genre, and they become principles that everyone is like talking about, widespread also to the commoners. Also, if you're not a great scholar, also if you're under 40, so people are starting to be exposed to these ideas of mysticism into Judaism in a very widespread way. And they establish communities. It starts in Ukraine, and they move over to Poland. And they are considered a threat also to the traditional Judaism that kind of like sees them as, like, what are you talking about? Matters of the heart and how you're feeling and things like that. Like, we don't care. Like, you got to do these things, like whether you're happy or not. You got to always pray, whether you want to pray or not. It's like they are very concerned about these ideas, and also the studying of the Talmud, which is the essence of mainly the Lithuanians yeshivas, is becoming threatened by this popular movement of people who are starting to study other kind of like writings which are more popular and more sentimental, and they're very concerned that the students will start leaving them. And around that time also, okay, is the Enlightenment. Okay, we see that 1800, right, around the emancipation and the emergence of the Jewish Enlightenment, Reform and Orthodox movement emerged. So because all of that is happening around that time, so the ones with the more stricter line that are called the Misnagdim are really going out against the Hasidim, and they're really like attacking them. And there's like among the Jews, it starts to be a terrible fight amongst them. It's like, I don't talk to you, you don't talk to me. The people don't get married within families.
That badly?
Yeah, oh yeah. There's
Ooh.
like really, like
It's like a civil war of Jews.
it's like a civil war. It becomes violent even sometimes. It's like, it's like they actually use violence. They go to the authorities and they rat on each other. And it becomes one of the most, terrible battles between Jews. And they are threatening to, to ban them out of Judaism. For example, I think let's look at the people that are the main players around that time is in the Jewish historical figures. So we have the Baal Shem Tov.
Are you
Okay.
looking down? Oh,
In
a
green.
Jewish stick, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
green is in Europe, and the Vilna Gaon, okay, from Vilna. So these two figures are really, they're not exactly around the same time, but they are the leaders of both these movements. The Vilna Gaon, I think Steve Silverstone is their descendant. Okay, kind of looked like him, when he had a long beard.
I'm supposed to also be, but
Yeah,
not
That
sure.
explains a lot, Steve.
right. You're not as strict as he was, though.
He's turning in the grave if I'm related.
Yeah. So the Vilna Gaon is like really leading this charge against the Hasidim. He's very upset with them, and actually, this is like around the time when Chabad emerges as well, because Chabad is like more like emerges out of the Hasidim, okay, and they are attacked by the Misnagdim, by the Vilna Gaon and the others. He's even sent to jail because of the Jews that are like telling on making up stories against him and things like that. It's pretty wild. We will study more about that when we get to that time of that period of time. But it's a very sad, story. Even till today, some of these sects are fighting in Jerusalem and in other places. You hear from time to time the way they're treating each other's rabbis is pretty bad. Like we sometimes think like all the Orthodox that wear black, they're all the same, but it's not. Each kind of like outfit signifies something else. And you can identify. You're walking the streets of Jerusalem. You can identify if it's like a Hasidic Jew or a Misnagid a Jew, and and sometimes they could be in rivalry.
Does that,
bad rivalry
with Chabad, does it have anything to do with their, if I have this right, their general acceptance of, they go to a Jew wherever he's at, they do not insist on rigorous.
Well, that approach is really new.
Oh,
that's really modernity. That's only the Rabbi from New York. Okay,
Schneerson.
Well, they're all Schneerson.
Oh.
Okay. You need to see which Schneerson you're talking to. Okay.
What they're really doing with college students. I know my kids.
Yeah.
They are very accepting and welcoming, and they invite everybody to Shabbat dinner, whether they're Jewish or not, whether they're pink, green, yellow, or orange. You're invited to dinner, and every Friday night they do this, and they're very, very accepting.
They're doing their
grandson goes to dinner at Chabad at the university he's at every Friday night,
nice.
but he doesn't stay for the prayers.
He's dipping his toe.
Well, they don't make you stay for the prayers. They're
Right.
they're very good about that. I agree, they're very accepting, but that's really a change in their approach from, I think, around the 60s or 70s. Okay. The Rebbe in New York understood modernity, but the rabbis before him were very close. They mainly attended to their Hasidim and their people. And they have their own special Torah, which we could also look into when we get to that period of time. But that more modern approach and accepting and going out and reaching out to people is a change from this current Rebbe. It's really definable because he doesn't have any descendants.
Isn't that an approach that is give them honey rather than vinegar? Because it brings them in rather than that. And you hope that they will go on and go further.
That's probably part of it, yeah.
They brought one of mine in. I have 3 grandsons. One of them is now a Chabadnik. 2 of them went to dinner but are not.
Interesting. Okay. So basically this is happening around the 18th and 19th century, and a few other figures we need to look into. It's if we go back historically, okay, so we go to 1799, Napoleon's proclamation to the Jews. Okay, this happens in France. And it's like, it's already in the free France, right, that is giving Jews the rights to be citizens like all the others. And that's like a really groundbreaking, changing thing for the Jews, right? They don't have to live anymore in the ghettos. They could go out. They could be part of the nations. They could go and be in universities and other professions. It wasn't clear, so smooth at the beginning, but it's a process that began here with Napoleon's and with the other leaders of the world, with the enlightenment, with the emancipation that they gave to the Jews.
Well,
And this happens just 200 years ago. Okay.
Napoleon brought the end of the bloody revolution in France. So I think there would have been a lot of stuff going on at that time with Napoleon, because the French were in completely disarray.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
He wasn't so kind in the north of Italy. My mother's family was in the north of Italy, in the Veneto, and he persecuted the nobility, and they had to flee. They went to Costa Rica and to Argentina because he was very hard on the Italian nobility.
Okay. Yeah. So
not so kind.
Yeah, but Napoleon's a very, complicated figure, but this is but he did different things. Yeah.
But after Napoleon was defeated at Waterloo, there was this huge
Conflagration.
not a conflagration. It was a
Big get together.
No.
A big
It was a
get-together.
huge conference of all of the major powers in Europe that wanted to bring back Louis the 15th or 16th.
Well, 16th lost his head, so
But how does that have to do with the Jews?
Well, I was wondering if one of the things they did was because they tore down Napoleon's empire again and reinserted all the royalty that was supposedly there before.
Yeah.
And I just wondered if they had reversed Napoleon's proclamation.
No, I don't think they reversed it in most of these places. What happens is really the establishments of the Reform and Orthodox movements, and also the conservative movement that that we're part of, happens around that time. Because once Jews are allowed out of the ghettos and they don't have to dress up in black and they could acquire other professions, they don't even have to be Jewish, okay? They could assimilate. Okay, until then, everyone had to have a religion, right? Starting after emancipation, most of the regimes become secular. They're not religious anymore. That's because they don't like the church having all that power anymore. So secularism starts around the world as well, or at least in Europe. So it happens also with the Jews. It's influenced in Jews. And it's like, we don't have to do anything in Judaism. We don't even have to be Jewish anymore, okay? That's when the Reform movement is established, saying to the Jews, wait, you could still be Jewish, okay, but you don't have to be like so strict about your Judaism. You don't have to, you don't have to do like circumcision. You don't have to keep the Sabbath, okay? You don't have to eat kosher anymore. We could change our prayer books to German, because this is happening in Germany, okay, in the 1800s. The rabbi doesn't have to give his sermon anymore in Yiddish, okay? They can speak in proper German, okay? We could be like citizens of the world. Our Sabbath will become Sunday, etc., etc. And a lot of Jews are like, oh, okay, so we can, and they start building the synagogues like the churches, and they bring in, the organ and a lot of these things. So a lot of Jews are like, okay, okay, if it's like more like lighter version and it's not that different than Christianity, and we don't have to keep all these, difficult mitzvahs. So, we'll stay Jewish. So Reform is really it's trying to sort of like stop that move of all the Jews that are like sort of like fleeing the Judaism. They're starting, that's their response to that phenomena of secularism and abandoning Judaism. So they're trying to sort of like create a Judaism that is more
Palatable?
Hmm?
Palatable?
Yes.
For the common folk.
Palatable for the common folks.
Bravo.
Okay, and they're doing it because they also believe in it. They're not just, they feel that Judaism in the ghettos and over all these years became very cumbersome. Okay, sort of like forgot its main ideas of believing in one God, monotheism, etc., and sort of like distorted the ways of what the simple Judaism was in the Torah. Okay, so they're making all these changes. Yes.
Rabbi, I thought the reform movement sort of grows out of the Haskalah. And then when those people in Poland, and then when they move out to Germany, because there's a lot of Germany, Poland becomes one over, depend on pancakes, you flip them over, they're Germany, you flip them over, it's Poland. And I thought that those who are educated, university graduates, those are becoming more educated, and those that are in Poland, Jews, become more superstitious. And they're not necessarily educated, and they're doing some kind of a Judaism by lots of superstition involved in it.
Yeah, no,
And that's
so
what the battle, I thought.
Haskalah comes a little bit later, to more like in the later of the 19th century to Poland, Russia. It's moving slowly, but it starts in Western Europe. Okay,
Yeah.
that's where emancipation begins, is in Western Europe, in mainly in Germany and France. Okay, these places that are liberated from that becomes more and more democracies. That's how emancipation travels. Okay, it's going east all the time. So the same with the Jews also. The first Jews, it's like Mendelssohn with his his commentary. He's one of the first scholars of enlightenment, of Jewish enlightenment, but that's in Germany. That's not in Poland.
I don't see anything down here regarding critical analysis of the Torah.
Well, so that's sort of like, so that's also at the essence of Reform Judaism, is also that kind of like studying the Torah and the Talmud in a more critical way, and in a more scientific analysis. That also happens in Germany as well, where Christian scholars are studying also their writings in a more critical scientific way. So the same is happening also with the Jews.
So was that at that time centered in Germany?
Yes, Germany is really the main place. It's all happening, and then slowly moving to other places.
Germany was a bunch of principalities.
Oh yeah, it was a very large. It was a very large
It
area.
was not united until very late.
Yeah,
Right, the end of the
1870s.
Yeah, a bunch of
Right.
Prussian
Bismarck.
states.
But Jews
Bismarck.
are very prosperous in Germany of that time. Okay, in sciences, in music, in poetry, in everything, and also in terms of like the Jewish Enlightenment. And what happens is that the more traditional Jews, okay, are going ballistic. It's like, what do you mean you're changing Judaism? You cannot change Judaism, okay? And they're starting to fight against each other, and that's really where Orthodox Judaism is established. Okay, they are saying, like, you can't make any changes. All these changes that you are suggesting, they're going against them, and they're each going, and they're each kind of like fighting together. And if like the Jewish community that used to be together, suddenly there could be like two synagogues. One synagogue where they're trying to bring an organ or change the prayer book or something like that, and the other people of the synagogue is like, we don't want these changes. Like, what are you doing? And so they're splitting into two communities, and it's happening community after community, city after city. And the more traditional Jews feel they're sort of like under attack by these progressive Jews that are changing everything, and they realize they got to get together, and they establish sort of like a movement together, which is like the Orthodox movement, which is like basically saying, we will no longer make any changes. in Judaism. There's like a lockdown on changes in Judaism, and we will stay the same way, the same clothes we're wearing, the same practices, the Yiddish, okay, all these things. We will not change these things at all. And this, we see this happening until today, that they're sort of like preserving the fort of Judaism. It's like a Fort Knox, right? They don't open the gates, they don't allow for the changes. And they're still dressed like in Poland from like hundreds of years ago. That comes from here. That comes exactly from this scare that they got from Reform Judaism. And in a way, that also, this is where conservative Judaism emerges, okay, in Germany,
It's a
around
balance
exactly around the
between-
same saying, like, okay, we gotta figure out what's going on, because on the one hand, Reform are really making very rapid changes that, like, people are going to abandon Judaism, and it's going to be a completely different religion without doing a bris, without keeping the Sabbath, kashrut, all these things, changing the prayer book into German, and like, they took out the yearning for returning to Israel and Zion. They took that out of the prayer books of Reform. Okay, so conservative Judaism is like, wait, it's like the Orthodox have some point to what they're saying. However, just preserving everything and not making any changes and not realizing the changes that are going on around the world are also, it's also not the right approach. You can't isolate yourself. Judaism never isolated itself. It always was a religion that knew how to adapt philosophies and ideas and practices from the outside. Okay, so conservative Judaism is sort of like established around that understanding that you could make changes, but you need to do it in a more slow and conservative way. Okay, that's where the sort of like the term conservative Judaism starts. You can make changes, but you need to do it in a more conservative approach. And of course, neither the Reform nor the Orthodox accepted it. So that's how a third stream in Judaism is established. Okay. Yes.
Worldwide, how are those three streams apportioned in terms of percentages, roughly?
That's a fascinating question. But first, let's look at Europe. Okay. And now, if there was no Holocaust, that would be an even more fascinating question, right? Because the Reform was very strong. Okay. And if there was no Holocaust, we would see, and Jews would still be living in Europe, and that's probably what would happen, right? So there would be a lot of Reform communities. That would probably be the main dominant religion of, Judaism of most Jews there. But Orthodox was also very strong, right? Millions of Orthodox Jews also perished in the Holocaust. By the way, the Nazis did not care if you're Reform, conservative, or Orthodox.
Or even not,
Okay.
They didn't care about a lot.
Right. No, yeah, but it's right, because we always, like, fight amongst themselves, but like the Nazis, like, all of you Jews, okay, they were like against all the Jews. But Orthodox was also very strong in Hungary, in Poland, okay, and also in Germany, the opposition to the Reform. So we would have seen hundreds, thousands of Jewish congregations probably prospering in Europe. But conservative Judaism, I think, would have been also very dominant there, because it was like the in-between congregation. And a very good example of that is Hungary. In Hungary, conservative Judaism stayed, okay, even after the Holocaust, because the Nazis were not able to get all of Hungarian Jews, okay. A large percentage of Hungarian Jews survived and remained in, and the conservative movement was really the one that was prevalent there. It wasn't called conservative, because the name conservative really came about in America. There it was called the Neolog movement in Germany, in Hungary, I'm sorry. And until today, there's the Neolog movement, and most synagogues and most Jews are part of the Neolog, which is really, today, it's part of the conservative movement.
What about Masorti?
Masorti is the more modern name, okay, for conservative Judaism in Israel and in Europe. Okay, they did not want the name conservative because of the more political connotations. Because in England, in politics, you have like the Conservative
Conservative and
Party.
Labor.
They didn't want to,
Liberal.
Conservative and Labor. They didn't want to be associated with that name, so they adapted the Israeli name of Masorti. But Masorti Judaism is like conservative Judaism.
I've seen recently, I've seen some Jewish organizations have conservative / Masorti.
Right, a lot, yeah, I think even in the bylaws of our of Ner Tamid, I think it's mentioned some sort
We
of
just
Judaism.
changed it. We just put it in there.
We just added it, yeah. Right.
So worldwide, what do you think?
So worldwide,
yeah.
it used to be most Jews in America were part of conservative Judaism. Okay, but there's been a decline in conservative Judaism from the 70s, 80s. Okay, and today, I think it's like 20-something% are conservative, 40-something% are reform. I think it's like 15% are Orthodox, and the rest are unaffiliated. Okay, I don't know the exact numbers now, but this is sort of like what the studies are saying now.
But Chabad,
That's all.
Chabad doesn't have a membership. Okay, they don't
they're
have.
so popular nowadays.
They're very popular, but they don't have membership. You don't pay to be a member in Chabad. You just go to the synagogue and you donate.
Donate, lots of donations.
They have a lot of donations. They have they're very they have very good relationships with the big donors in the community, also in our community. They're like, they cultivate these relationships with the very, very big donors, and they help sustain their synagogues.
So they also have a yearly telethon.
A telethon, they do a lot of these things. So they don't keep membership. So we don't know exactly how many people. And they are popular because they're drawing kids, okay, that could be members of a conservative synagogue, but they go to dinner, but they don't become members there. It's like a different model. Like we work more on a membership model in the conservative movement, so we have members. We know how many members we have. In Chabad, like if you just count the people who are Chabad, it's not a lot of people, right? In every community, so it's like, the father is the rabbi and his sons are rabbis and the grandkids are mitzvah, so they could be 20, 30 in the community, but that's it. Everyone else around them that comes, they're not Chabad. Okay, so it's not easy to count that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Rabbi, do Orthodox rabbis not give the same sort of freedom to local congregations that conservatives do, where the local rabbi really establishes the rules that we're going to follow?
Well, usually in the Orthodox world, they're very strict and they sort of like enforce things on you. Okay, and they do it. They can't make you keep kosher, but if you wouldn't keep kosher, so maybe you wouldn't be your kids maybe wouldn't be accepted into the school. Okay, if you drive on Shabbat, so they won't give you an aliyah to the Torah. So they have like different ways of persuading you to become part of that community. Now there's more open Orthodoxy, and even Orthodoxy today. I don't want to go into that. Maybe we could give it. Maybe we need to give a lecture about Jewish streams today, how they are, what is like sort of like the current state of Judaism. Because I see we need to finish today. We're not going to have a fourth lesson, and we're just at 1800. Okay, so we need to jump. Okay.
We want to go forward. It was good in 1800.
Right. Let's go a little bit up the timeline to 1840, the Damascus affair, a very sad affair where this is in Damascus in Syria, where Jews are really prospering. Okay. But more like radical Islam is emerging as well. And there are riots against the Jews of Damascus, blaming them for, I think it was like for the death of some Muslim kids, and really massacring hundreds of Jews. And there's there's a movie about that because the ancient Torah that's been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, the earliest manuscript of the Torah is there in Damascus, and somehow it's saved in a miraculous way, and it gets saved. So there's a beautiful movie about that.
Was that where they were blaming the Jews for Passover sacrificing a
It
child?
was
Oh, that's in Russia.
Yeah, no, that happened
Yeah,
throughout,
that's
that
Russia.
happened all the time, but I don't remember exactly what they were blaming Jews, wrongfully, of course. But this is, it's, I think it's important to put a light on the fact that there are millions of Jews living in Arab countries. Okay, this is before there are actually Arab countries. There's still Muslim countries that are becoming as the rest of the nations are becoming independent. Okay, the Arab nations are also emerging here slowly, not yet, but it's happening here, and are having national desires as well. And Jews are sort of like in the way, right? And this we'll talk about this more later. But when Zionism becomes stronger and stronger, the Jews in the Arab countries are under attack, okay, because of the political situation in the land of Israel. And then when Israel is established as a country, then the Arab Jews are expelled from their countries. Millions of Arab Jews, and we barely talk about this, millions of Arab Jews are expelled from Iraq, okay, and Yemen and Syria and Lebanon and all across North Africa, Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco. I mean, some of them were not expelled, some of them were like kindly pushed, some of them did not want to stay because of the atmosphere that was there, and many of them just left. All the very wealthy, very rich, and just left everything they had and fled to young Israel that had to sort of like absorb them. So we don't realize sometimes that there was like a mass deportation of millions of Jews from these countries where they lived for centuries in a very peaceful way, and usually in good relationship with the local other Muslims.
When did this start? Around the 1900s?
Sort of like the end of the 19th century, but
Okay.
mainly in the 20th century.
Okay.
Okay, now let's talk about the Dreyfus Affair. Okay, the Dreyfus Affair really changed history, right? And mainly not so much because of the Dreyfus Affair, but because of a reporter that covered the Dreyfus Affair. Do you remember the Dreyfus Affair?
Yes.
Yes. He was a captain in the French army, and they blamed him as a traitor for the loss of the war between the Prussians and the French.
Right. Thank you very much.
He was very loyal.
Yes.
French.
He was a very loyal, very high in ranks, but he was Jewish. Okay. So he was like the victim to blame. And they had a fake trial against him. People testified against him, and they put him in the square of the town and took off his ranks and broke his sword. Okay, all of this is reported in the news for days and days, and there were demonstrations by people who was like saying like against him, but also but there was some reporters that was like saying like, what's going on? This looks like a fake trial. Okay, they realized that it's yeah, and Herzl. Theodor Herzl, a reporter from Vienna, a Jewish reporter from Vienna, very assimilated. He had his bar mitzvah in Hungary. It was actually at the synagogue where he had his bar mitzvah in the conservative synagogue there, the Neolog, and but the family completely assimilated, not observing anything. He doesn't know a word in Hebrew, doesn't know much about Judaism. But he's a well-known reporter. He writes plays in the theater. He's like enjoying life. So he goes there and he sees this mock trial and he's like, I thought I would like assimilate and be like a citizen of the world and they would accept us. Okay, just like Dreyfus, who was also a completely secular Jew. Okay, but they're still after Jews, even though we did everything that they wanted. Okay, they wanted us to get out of the ghetto. They wanted us to strip ourselves from all our traditions and our, but just because we're Jewish, anti-Semitism is still up and alive. That was a shocking moment for him.
But wasn't it Emile Zola that?
Emile Zola was a reporter,
He French, he wrote it in
and he
French.
says, "I accuse." Okay,
J'accuse.
j'accuse, okay?
Something
Yes.
Rabbi, I would like to add something really small.
Wait. I wanna at the end, okay? And I'll remind you, don't worry. And then Herzl says that the only solution for Jews, okay, is to take them and move them to this place that's called the land of Israel, okay? He comes up with this crazy idea. I know that saying it today could sound political, right? Okay, but he comes up with this really crazy idea of all the Jews need to be moved, okay, or else they would always be persecuted. They would always be anti-Semitism. They will never settle down, okay. And he actually says it's not necessarily so much the Jews of the West, because they are more established and they're more integrated. We got to rescue the Jews in Kishinev, in Russia, in Ukraine, in Poland. They are suffering the most from anti-Semitism, which really they did. Okay, and he establishes in 1897 the first Zionist Congress. Okay, and that's the Congress that 50 years later, okay, establishes the state of Israel. So his crazy idea is actually fulfilled, okay, years afterwards, and really Jews start coming into the land of Israel, settling the land through the Zionist movement and the Zionist Congress, collecting money from people. Everyone's like, purchasing like a shekel. He creates elections. He revives the Jewish people, and his vision is really bringing the entire people, Jewish people together to have like a one uniform identity, okay? Because living in exile for all these years created like different kind of like segments of Judaism, and people don't talk to each other, they're not knowing about each other, and not feeling part of like a collective Jewish people. So his goal was really to get the Jews all over the world, and he got the Jews all over the world, and to get them as one people, and to go back to the land of Israel.
Last night I saw a documentary that included the person who converted Hebrew into a modern language.
Oh yeah, Eliezer ben Yehuda. So that we talked about him a few times ago, where reviving the Hebrew language was also part of this movement. Purchasing land through JNF, Jewish National Fund, was part of this movement. Establishing the Jewish Agency that also helped, bring Jews from all over the world to Israel. So all these institutions that exist until today, okay, were established by Herzl and his cohorts. In 1903. Okay, the Kishinev pogrom, which again in Poland, that again kills 100 and something Jews, I think. Why?
Ukraine.
In Ukraine,
Yes,
Kishinev.
Ukraine.
Sorry, I meant Ukraine. Sorry. Okay, and the reports from the pogrom there really enforced that thinking of Herzl. We got to move fast. We got to get the Jews out. And at that time, by the way, he is offered Uganda. You remember that part?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The British Empire understand, Herzl's a very good advocate. He goes to all the prime ministers of England, which ruled the British Empire, that rules that the world at that time. He also goes to the Turkish Sultan, okay, in Istanbul, and tries to convince him. And at a certain point, he's offered, you know what, you Jews just go to Uganda, okay? And because Herzl is so stressed for saving Jews, he says, okay, I'll accept. And he brings the vote to the Zionist Congress in 1904, I think, or 03, okay? And right after the Kishinev pogrom. It's like an emergency meeting. Let's accept Uganda as the place for Jews to go. And the Western Jews are like, okay, it's like, it will be like a temporary place. And then one day we'll go back to Zion. The Jews of Poland, the Jews of Ukraine and Russia, the ones who are suffering the most, okay, the ones who are being slaughtered and being under pogroms, they riot against Herzl. They said, no way will we give up Israel. And they have a sit down in the Congress and they tear their clothes because the vote is about to be, and they see there that the Zionist Congress is going to vote to go to Uganda instead of to the land of Israel. They said they could pogrom us and they could kill us for as long as they want. We will never give up that hope of going back to the land of Israel. Herzl loses the vote. He's devastated and he's like, these Jews, I'm trying to save them. Okay, but then at the last, he passes away that year. Okay, he dies at the age of 43.
Whoa.
Okay, the man accomplished like unbelievable so much in his lifetime. The amount of what he is, we should really do a lesson about him as well. Okay, so he's like the modern Moses of the people of Israel, and he writes at the end of his life that he agrees that he should never have given up the land of Israel, and he writes in his will, okay, I command the people of Israel that when there's a state of Israel, that they will take the remainings of my bones, okay, and bury them. He knows he's about to die, and they did that. And Ben Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, actually does that, and that sort of like the story of Herzl. Herzl also writes in he says like what I see here, the hate to Jews and the anti-Semitism that I see here in Europe, including Western Europe, is one day is going to turn against the Jews, and it's going to create. He doesn't write Holocaust, but he describes what could be the Holocaust. And that's really what happens. If you see on our chart here in 1939, the Holocaust that kills 6 million Jews. Before the Holocaust, there are 16.6 million Jews alive. And following the Holocaust is obviously the Declaration of Independence in the land of Israel.
Well, he had a good understanding of the history of the
Yeah.
persecution.
Yeah, he was a historian. He understood that very well. Go back to the books, the Jewish literature, and we see Rome and Jerusalem. That's written in Europe by Moshe Hess. Hess was a historian, and he's one of the sort of like, he has this vision of Jews need to be in Israel. His writing really influenced history, Herzl, okay? And he was a very important thinker. Hess, the writer of Rome and Jerusalem, you see where it says Rome and Jerusalem?
Oh.
With a green dot.
Yeah.
All the way down.
Right here.
Jewish literature.
But they don't have.
To the right.
It's a blue dot. Oh.
No, it's not blue, it's green.
Green.
No, it's blue.
It's
Green.
Rome and Jerusalem.
Green.
Green.
Looks blue.
Well, some people maybe call it.
Some of us are colors.
It's very close.
You know what? It's very close to the blue. That's
Yes, it is. It is. It's
blue and
very
green
cute.
that are close to each other. It looks
Yeah.
okay.
It's teal.
But this writing of Moshe Hess, okay, influences Herzl dramatically, and that's where he gets the idea that yes, Jews need to go back to the land of Israel. Herzl writes a few books that it's called the Jewish state, where he imagines how a Jewish state would be. And it's crazy. You read it today and it's like very, it's like how a state should be. So he had that vision while there was like nothing in the land of Israel. A very other books that are written around that time is Shmirat HaLashon and Mesilat Yesharim, which are important moral books that were written. If we go up to Jewish historical figures, so we look on the right, all the way to the right, we see Herzl on top in green. We see Bialik, who was a great Jewish author and poet, and a great Zionist as well. And he represents maybe the Jewish Enlightenment in that way. Rabbi Kook, Rav Kook, was an Orthodox rabbi, was the first chief rabbi of the land of Israel, and kind of like he's like the establisher of the Zionist religious movement today, which is like the settler movement. And also it's all the Orthodox people who are not wearing black, okay, the ones that are more modern looking, and they're still Orthodox in their practice, but they have, general professions, they serve in the army. So it's more, that's where, he's sort of like the establishment of that movement within the Orthodox world.
Was he Ashkenazi or Sephardi?
He was Ashkenazi. Then we have Einstein. To be honest, I don't know why Einstein is even on that chart. He's Jewish and he's a great man, but he didn't. He was offered to be the president of Israel. Okay, which he declined. He was also offered before that. He was offered to be the president of Hebrew University that was just established in the 1920s.
Also Technion too.
No, I don't think Technion existed then. Oh, maybe later on, right? Yeah, maybe later on.
He had a saying that
Kindly rejected that. I don't know if he was a great Zionist.
I don't know.
He wasn't against Zionism, but I don't think he was a Zionist.
He had a great line that he said he doesn't believe God plays with dice.
Right. Yeah. And then the last person that's obviously important is Ben Gurion, a Polish Jew that was captivated by the ideas of Zionism. Moved to Israel as a young boy, and like when he was like 17 or 18, and later on became a political activist and was the first prime minister of Israel, and really kind of like established the state of Israel as we know it today, fulfilling the vision of Herzl.
Did any of these people foresee the evolution from a agrarian society in Israel to a technology society in Israel?
Yeah, Herzl writes about technology. Herzl says all the best things of Europe that he sees emerging. I think even, he even has like a vision of automobiles. I don't think they existed, but maybe they were talking
In
about
1903, there were automobiles.
They were, so he knew everything. So he's describing Tel Aviv as a like modern city. It's shocking to see what a vision he had of Israel, also exporting agriculture and oranges and technology to the whole
the origin
world.
of
It was a
Israel.
real utopia.
They created marvelous irrigation because it was
So
couldn't grow stuff.
Yeah, Golda is not here. She's later on. Okay, Golda is a very important woman, and I also agree. There's a lack of women in this chart, so we need to revise this chart a bit. Golda was a very important figure in the establishment of the state of Israel as well. I think she signed on the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, but a lot of others did too. So if you include Golda, you would have to include.
Right,
many.
right, exactly.
She doesn't have the
Weizmann
leadership position yet.
right. She didn't have back then. She didn't.
Yeah, with
What are the
Yeah.
world events that happened in those 200 years that the Jews are like going through these amazing changes? The world is also going through very big changes, right? It's not just the Jews. The Declaration of Independence for America, the scientific and industrial revolutions, the French Revolution, World War I, World War II. I don't think Jews could have had all these changes if not for the changes in the rest of the world, right? If the world,
Reformation,
what?
Reformation.
Yeah, so without all the changes that the rest of the world was going through, Jews would not have come back to the land of Israel. So it's sort of like this huge, it's all integrated one another. And in that way, it's fascinating to think of, but it's especially fascinating for the Jews if you think about the where it starts, right? In the year 3500, with Adam and Eve and Abraham and Sarah, and going into the land of Israel, and you would think.
Got your number.
So it's kind of like unbelievable to think that Jews came to the land of Israel thousands of years ago, established a society here, were exiled to Babylonia, came back after 70 years, established a second temple and second kingdom, okay, and then were exiled again, okay, and for thousands of years were out of their country, and
Well,
then
they went
suddenly
completely out.
come back. Okay, after thousands of years, they come back. There was like a very small representation of Jews here. They always kept that religious connection. But as a people, as a nation, to go back and establish the state of Israel, we could understand why some people would view it as a miracle, as some kind of like a godly plan in many ways. And when we say the prayer for the state of Israel, this is kind of like what we're saying. Like we're blessing God we're thanking God for that miracle of coming back to the state of Israel. Okay, so this sort of like sums up 3 pieces of a timeline of Jewish history and heritage, and also the main Jewish books that were written. We missed a lot of books. We didn't talk about a lot of them. I will talk about them starting next week. We will start, and what I will do is I will bring you different parts of the books, okay, like a copy, and we'll have a folder, and you'll put it in the folder, and then by the end of a few lessons that we will go through these, you'll sort of like have a better understanding of these books. Okay.